Good morning. This is kind of by way of like bringing cakes in for your birthday. This is something that I don't like to do. I very rarely issue these anymore, but that's no reason I should stop anyone else. I'm going to talk about the ubiquitous Tootsie Rolls, these pads that we put under clawed or hammered toes, just to try and keep the apices off the toes. Everyone's got their own version of this. I'm going to show you 3 variations of mine. And you can use them as you please. And the variations I'm going to show you are a full stop, a comma and a question mark. So I generally just use the tubey gauze. So that goes under there like that. So for a full stop, what you want is it to be beveled at one end, straight at the other. And they really couldn't be any quicker or easier to make. You obviously on a foot you would measure the length, but you poke that under there, and then you roll it up so that the beveled end actually rolls around there. And the reason that is called a full stop because that is broadly speaking round, so that will sit under there like that. This is designed to lift that off of the floor. So if it's sitting on the floor like that, that is designed to sort of slightly lift the toe. So that's a full stop. A comma is a slight variant on that. So again, I'm not measuring and pretending that we have a patient here. Normally you would obviously be aligning it, and generally speaking you'll have it at a bit of an angle like that, so going from the second to the fourth toe. A comma is very similar to a full stop, but you bevel both sides, and instead of having it sort of wrapped around so it's round, you're actually looking for it to be tapered that shape. So once again, you'd be doing this on the foot to make sure that this is the right length, but for the sake of brevity we're going to do that. So instead of sort of tucking it in and rolling it up like a Swiss roll, we're just going to fold this one in half like that. So you've got a thin end for the lesser toe, a fat end for the second toe, and the idea with this is it's called a comma because it is, broadly speaking, comma shaped. It's tapered at one end. So the idea with this one is a little different. Instead of the full stop where we are trying to lift that off the ground, with the comma we're actually trying to create almost like a ramp so that the distal phalanx there sits at a bit more of an angle. So instead of being tipping to the ground, we're sort of slanting it that way. So that is your comma. And finally your full stop. This is one that is a little less intuitive, but we'll see how we go. So again, we always want to have a slight taper on it for the lesser toes. And with this one we have a really shallow bevel at one end. Like that. So there's almost a step. Average bevel at the other end. And then you still have the tape at the one end. This would be the normal bevel end, and this one you sort of roll it up, but only to about that point. So you actually leave a shelf there, and then you take a piece of fleece web. Coincidentally, you can do this with any of them, that you can wrap them in fleecy web. It just makes them a little bit nicer to wear. That's not bad for an estimation. So again, you can see why it's called a question mark, because looked at from the side it sort of is. And this one is designed so that when the toes sit on it, there's a roll underneath, but there's actually a little shelf for the apex of the toe to sit on. So whereas the The full stop is just trying to lift the toe off the ground. The comma is trying to create a little ramp so that instead of being like that, it's more like that. This one is accepting that it's going to do that, trying to lift, but also just putting something soft underneath it. So this sort of surrenders to the fact that the tip of the toe is going to sit on the ground, but tries to create a bit of cushioning as well as a bit of lift. I say I don't often use these things anymore. I've more or less now just used the knuckle dusters because I just think they're better. But I have used these very successfully for a large number of years. And the joy of all of these designs is that they're really terribly, terribly simple. You don't need to make these for your patients. You can show them how to do it, give them a sheet of felt and a roll of stuff, measure the length of the strap so that it's always the same. They can make their own ones of these, and patients will get very good at it as well. But just be aware of what you're trying to do. Full stop to lift, comma to ramp, or question mark to actually provide a lift and a little bit of a step. All right, hope that was helpful.